Donald Trump this morning taking on Boeing, which has a deal in place to build a new Air Force One program. Trump tweeted out today that the new plane for Air Force One is too expensive. Then he stopped to talk to reporters at Trump Tower, and here's what he said. Watch this moment.
Well, the plane is totally out of control. It's going to be over $4 billion. It's for Air Force One program. And I think it's ridiculous. I think Boeing is doing a little bit of a number. We want Boeing to make a lot of money, but not that much money. Okay, thank you.
Sit up and take notice, Boeing, right? Good morning. Guy Benson is the political editor for townhall.com. Richard Fowler, Democratic strategist and radio talk show host, both are Fox News contributors. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you with us this morning. You know, it's so interesting to watch Donald Trump in action, because what we're learning here is that none of these off-the-cuff comments are off-the-cuff at all. He walked over to the reporters. They asked him one sort of general question about who was coming through today. He said, yeah, they're all great. And then he waited for the reporter who was going to pipe up and say, hey, what about that tweet that you mentioned this morning about Boeing? And then he delivered the message that he no doubt walked into that lobby to deliver. Guy, what does this signal in your mind?
Yeah, the tweet and then waiting for the question, obviously deliberate and planned. And I think it's just fascinating to watch him at work on some of this stuff, because some people say, as you suggested, like, oh my gosh, maybe it's just completely flying by the seat of his pants, which may be the case in a number of circumstances, but not in this one. And I think what's particularly interesting about what he's done here is he's taking one relatively small line item that is a rounding error in the federal budget, but it's one that involves sprucing up a plane that he's going to fly on, right? This is something that sort of benefits him. It reminds me of him saying he doesn't want to take a presidential salary. And he's sending a message, not just to Boeing, saying, hey, if this is getting a little over budget, let's rein it back in. He talked a lot about, you know, being under budget and ahead of schedule on the campaign trail and his private sector stuff. He wants to transfer that over to his job as president. And I think that he's also sending a message to voters saying, I'm going to keep an eye out for you and your pocketbook, even when it would benefit me, a huge program like this. You know,
but when you dig into this, there's even more here. And that was the case with the carrier situation as well. So he used the carrier jobs, which was, you know, great for those 1,100, however many people were affected and their jobs were saved, Richard. But it goes back to United Technologies, which is a defense contractor for the United States government. Now here, when you dig into this Boeing comment on Air Force One, there is another deal that has been in the works to move the construction of F-16 fighter jets to India, and that's a Boeing project as well. And you look back at something that President-elect Trump said a month ago, and I want to quote this. He said, we're living through the greatest jobs theft in the world. He said that American companies have laid off workers and moved jobs to India, Singapore, and Mexico. India, Singapore, Mexico. So watch those countries. It's getting worse and worse and worse. So this is fascinating, because he may also be after that project movement as well, Richard.
Well, I think you're right, Martha. And this is the type of Donald Trump that me as a Democrat can live with. It's Donald Trump that goes out there and says, this is a bad deal for the American people, and guess what? As president, I won't let that go through. So I think this is good. And I think to speak to your next point is the idea that we are making our military weapons overseas is shocking, and Boeing should be ashamed of themselves, and maybe Donald Trump is the one that holds them accountable.
But that was an Obama-sanctioned project. They feel that it improves the relationship with India to have those fighter jets made in India, Richard.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't think it's still not a good deal. I mean, I was one of the few Democrats that were against the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership because I thought it was bad for the American worker. And Hillary Clinton said the same thing. But this is why, you know, when you think about this election, you do a postmortem and you talk to folks in Ohio or you talk to folks in Wisconsin or in Macomb County in Michigan. This is why they voted for somebody like Donald Trump. Not that I agree with all of his policies, but he feels as though what he did today was he talked to them. He said, listen, $4 billion for a plane that already works pretty well. It seems to be a waste of money when that money could go into funding America's infrastructure. Now, what I hope Democrats will do is, one, they need to hold Donald Trump accountable, but two, when this infrastructure bill comes to the Congress, which it will in the next couple of weeks when he's president, Democrats should support it, but they should say, listen, let's do this in a way that truly works for the American people. Let's work with labor unions to make it a reality. Let's work and make sure we're employing minority contractors. So that's where I think Donald Trump could actually make some ground up here with a lot of Democrats who are depressed and demoralized from the Hillary Clinton defeat.
Great point, Richard. We'll see if that's how it plays out. Guy and Richard, thank you very much.